There's an experience that I myself have unfortunately gone through when I was in my college years, and once I've talked to other women about it, unfortunately, they have also experienced this as well. I didn't quite know how to describe it until watching this episode of the HBO TV show Girls. This episode changed my life. I'm very thankful that I've been able to watch it, and I cannot implore more people to go and watch just this episode. You don't have to watch the full series. You honestly don't, because it does work as a singular episode. You don't really need context to anything else that's happening in the show. You can only just watch this episode, which is season 6, episode 3, American Bitch. It really is an eye-opener into an unfortunate situation that a lot of people find themselves in, and particularly women, which is that unfortunate gray area of pushing boundaries, of making someone feel uncomfortable and pressured. But it is this very weird thing where you can't call it assault, because I guess technically it's not assault. You're not being forced against your will to perform a sexual act. However, it is still this treacherous gray area, which shouldn't be a gray area, and they do say that in this episode, which is great. Being in the situation where you do perform a sexual act, even though you didn't really feel like you wanted to in the first place. I will be going over how this episode absolutely highlights the situation perfectly, in my humble opinion, how I've never actually seen this being talked about on TV or movies before. It was, again, just such an eye-opener for me, because I didn't even realize that this was something that happened. I didn't realize that other women experienced this and that it wasn't just me. I've talked about my situations before to my friends, and fortunately it seems like quite a few of them haven't really experienced that, but some of them have, but we still didn't really know what to call it. The biggest word that we all came to the conclusion into saying was that we just felt uncomfortable, which no one should feel when doing a sexual act. Everybody should feel comfortable. That's what consent is for. But then yet these situations technically are consensual, but yet not entirely. A couple things to know before I truly get into this. I will be referring to mostly women in this video and attributing this experience to women specifically, mainly because of the episode itself is focusing on women specifically and attributes this to them. But that is not to say that this doesn't happen to anybody. This type of scenario can happen to anybody. This is also by no means an attack on men. This is by no means saying that all men are like this, all men are trash, all men. Okay, I also want to make that very clear. I do have a wonderful boyfriend. I do have an amazing father, and also wonderful male friends in my life. So I know there are great men out there, and I don't believe every man out there is trash. Okay, so this is just to preface that, just in case you come into this and think, oh my gosh, she just hates all men. She thinks all men are like this. No, I do not think all men are like this. And then lastly, Lena Dunham, who is the creator, executive producer, and star of this show, unfortunately is known for having a few incidences herself that involve sexual misconduct. So it's just unfortunate with her and her background and history. So take that for what you will. With all that being said, let's get into the episode itself. The premise of the episode itself is that Hannah, who is the lead in this show, is going to interview this author who she previously blasted on the internet for having multiple women accuse him of assault. Now, he invited her over essentially to clear his name, to defend himself, and as he puts it, to say his side of the story. Us, as the audience, we are introduced exactly as Hannah is introduced to this man. We have no idea who he is. We have no idea if the allegations are true. We are learning all of this through the main character, Hannah. I thought that this was also a really smart choice because there's no bias. immediately, right? We don't know if what he's saying is actually true. We don't know if what she's saying is actually true. We don't know as the audience because we're not shown flashbacks. So us as the audience are left in Hannah's shoes to piece it together throughout the episode by talking it over with this man and trying to figure out if those allegations are true or not. And throughout the episode, there are a lot of great back and forths. There's a lot of rich dialogue here that truly go into what I believe is a great depiction of the mindset of these men who do these kinds of things and also the mindset of the women who unfortunately have to endure these types of situations. One of the first examples being Hannah first describes how he uses his power and influence to involve himself with these college students that he did on his book tour.
That you were using your power and your influence to involve yourself sexually with college students.
These women who are accusing him of these nasty behaviors. And there's this whole back and forth whether it was consensual or not, because according to the woman, it was not consensual, but unfortunately to him, he asked the question, what even is considered not consensual, which should have been red flag number one.
How exactly does one give a non-consensual job?
Rewatching it this time around, that immediately did jump out at me of, how do you not know what consensual is or not? that already in itself, my guy, that already in itself was red flag number one. You should know. And then Hannah literally has to explain to him like he's a 5-year-old what consent is and what it doesn't look like, which is very unfortunate because a man of his age, he looks to be at least in his late 30s, I believe, that he should. I did also find it very interesting how, like I said at the beginning here, how she talks about how he's using his power and influence over these college students, which is absolutely true. Absolutely to a T. Men of higher status inherently do have more power over those who aren't, who would be simply college students who are just going about their day-to-day, don't even have their careers yet. Someone who's as established as him and is probably making stacks as well as he is, and Hannah does note that his apartment is really, really nice, so he obviously does make a lot of money. There's this power dynamic that unfortunately does happen time and time again with people of higher status. For example, James Franco. If you don't know, this exact situation is what happened to him. He was teaching college kids his own acting classes, and then a bunch of allegations towards him came out a few years later regarding college girls who did sleep with him and how he essentially used his authoritative power over them in order to get what he wants. So it is something that does happen quite often. Doesn't necessarily mean that the only times that these uncomfortable situations happen is because of a power imbalance. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's only because of that this happens, but it is more common for this to happen when there's a power dynamic imbalance. I do really like how this was mentioned right from the start. He then kind of tries to play what I like to call the sympathy card, the relatability card, where he gets a call from an ex-love of his who he shares a child with. And he seems very distressed, very distraught. And then after he's done the call, he tells Hannah how she is on her meds or something, that she had depression or some kind of mental health issue. So this then in turn gains more of Hannah's favor.
I've been taking pills to fall asleep, and guess what? They don't fucking work.
They then get into how he does have a daughter. We'll get more into it. But he has a daughter, and he is concerned about what his friends would think if they see something like this out there. He's concerned about what they would think about him and what that would do to her.
And that will hurt her. Understand? It will hurt my daughter.
And how these articles will inherently hurt his daughter. Now, so at this point, he truly is defending himself because he really doesn't think he did anything wrong. He thinks all the articles that are writing about this is bullshit. He thinks all the accusations are bullshit. He thinks they're lies. And he continues to defend himself to Hannah throughout the episode, that he absolutely didn't do anything that was not consensual.
Tumblr girls who come up to me at my lectures, and I am sorry, they hurl themselves at me.
Not like he put a gun to their head. It's not like he offered them a job.
Did I put a gun to her head? Did I offer her a job? I may be stupid, but I'm not evil.
Those choice of words are also very clever because, yes, we do often think about assault in particular as being connected with, yes, a bribe, some kind of bribe. I will pay for your school if you do this for me. I will give you a job if you do this for me, or forcibly with violence. Yes, we attribute situations like that to assault. However, that's exactly why I love this episode so much, because it opened my eyes to show to me, just because it's not as detrimental as that, as, let's say, rape, that still doesn't mean that these situations are okay. That still doesn't mean that what's happening to you isn't invasive. I very much loved that they used that example in the episode of those situations, because it really does just go to show that, yes, those situations are taken far more seriously, but then that shouldn't diminish these experiences, these very real, uncomfortable experiences that women often have to go through. Hannah also then explains her story, which this also was so huge. She explains to him how when she was younger, in the 5th grade, she had a teacher that made her feel special, that made her feel seen and heard, and she was his favorite. But he would often give her massages. He would often touch her in a way that made her feel very uncomfortable. However, she later ran into one of her ex-classmates, now years later that they're adults, and they were catching up, and she was saying, yeah, remember when Mr. So-and-so was kind of trying to molest me? And then he goes to her and says,
that's a very serious accusation, Hannah.
And then walks away and then leaves. And that, that itself speaks volumes on how much people undermine situations like this, how much people are scared of these types of words, of assault, of molesting. And yes, I do agree, you shouldn't just be throwing these words around, absolutely not. But it just goes to show how taboo it still unfortunately can be these days, and how even when you experience something as invasive as that, as these disgusting massages when you're a child, just absolutely imagine that is disgusting. But yet, unless the act actually happens, unless they're actually forcibly doing these things to you, you know, people don't take these situations seriously and make you feel dumb about it, make you feel like you're overreacting, make you feel crazy. And then in turn, you yourself do start feeling crazy about it, and you start talking yourself into thinking, okay, maybe I am overreacting. Maybe I was just being a little too harsh on the guy, maybe. And it just it just really gets to me, because you're your own person. You are so allowed. Like, who are they to tell you how you should feel? You are so allowed to feel invaded in your own space and uncomfortable, and you should not have to put up with feeling discomfort. You absolutely are in your right to feel that way. But yes, people often do diminish your feelings because it's not the actual act of full-on assault. You are absolutely in your right to be feeling uncomfortable and should not have to deal with it, period. But then we get into the next bit of the episode where he reads to her his side of the story, that apparently he wrote this before all of these articles started coming out about him and this girl, and all the accusations started to blow up. He wrote this in his perspective, saying how she threw herself at him, how essentially she was amazed by all of the glitz and glamour of the hotel room that they were in. He was asking her questions about her family, about her personal life, and wanted to get to know her, apparently. And then she was the one that said, to stop asking her questions, just get on the bed, and then she was the one that started to undo his pants. And that is all in his point of view. That is what he says what happened. And he even says it before in the episode as well. I forgot to mention, but he says how it's not his fault that these girls, they just throw themselves at him. They just throw themselves at him. So why is he the one to blame? Because they come at him. He then starts to gain Hannah's favor by asking her questions about herself. He says, you know what, that was probably my mistake, that I just didn't ask her enough questions. I didn't get to know her enough. So I want to rectify that by asking you, Hannah. Who are you as a person? What are your goals? What are your dreams? And then they start chatting and getting to know each other, and she starts feeling more comfortable around him, more safe, more secure. He also then shows her his wonderful collection of things. She is glamorized by the things that he's showing her. He has this signed copy of this prestigious book. I personally didn't know what it was, but they made it seem like a big deal. Signed copy of this book from a prestigious author, and he even offers it to her. He tells her, hey, you can keep that if you want. And she's like, really? He's like, yeah, absolutely.
Why don't you keep the Roth?
Seriously?
Yeah.
Gaining her favor that much more, getting that likability. Like, wow, this guy not only got to know me, this guy not only showed me his amazing things, but he's giving me something now. Wow, which is absolutely exactly what was being said before, and that Hannah actually points out to him is that yes, these girls feel special, they feel seen for a moment, but then that doesn't make it okay for you to take advantage of that. That's exactly why they do it sometimes, is because of how special you guys make us feel. And yeah, it does feel nice to be seen for a second, but that doesn't make it okay for you to take advantage and manipulate us into that. So that is the huge turning point in this episode, is that we get to see it unfold, unfortunately, for ourselves, that he is absolutely using these manipulative tactics to get her to do a actual favor for him. This, oh my God, this is the scene that I just, it really, really gets to me. It really gets to me. I hate watching it, but I had to watch it for the purpose of this video. But he then asks her to sit on the bed with him.
Hannah,
Yeah.
would you lie down with me for a moment?
If she could join him in bed. And he's like, you just keep your clothes on. I just want to feel comfortable next to a person. I want to feel the closeness of a person that I haven't felt in a while. So then she hesitates, and you can see the look on her face that she's thinking about it and seemingly uncomfortable now, but she feels put in a corner. What is she supposed to do? He's not asking her for anything serious. He's not asking her for anything crazy. What's the harm? She then goes to sit next to him, lays next to him, and after talking for a moment, unfortunately, he whips out his dick, and it's absolutely disgusting. And there it is. It's just right there in front of her for her to see. She then touches it, uncomfortably so, and then recoils, and then gets off the bed and calls him out for this disgusting behavior. She calls him out. She freaks out and says, you still have it out. She's audibly distressed, visibly distressed, and he still has it out. He doesn't even put it away, and he just has this disgusting smile on his face, like he got her. He got exactly what he wanted, that he manipulated her into trusting him, into liking him, into feeling comfortable enough around him to then turn it around to this very uncomfortable situation for her, but that she now unfortunately feels stuck in because of how well he's treated her, because of how well he's made her feel. It's almost like you're doing a favor for them, that, okay, look at how much he's done for me. He gave me this book. He's been so nice. He got to know me. So what is it to it if I do this thing for him, because he's been so nice. I might as well do this for him. No. Oh my God. That 100% illustrates, unfortunately, situations I myself have been in, situations I have heard, unfortunately, other of my friends have been, and I can almost guarantee that other women have been in. And it's just Oh, but then what are we supposed to call it? It's just this uncomfortable situation. They talk about how it's a gray area. Hannah says the gray area, and I agree. It shouldn't be a gray area. It should be you're either comfortable with it or not. And you should feel empowered enough to say no and walk away. But yet it happens. And that's exactly how these guys get away with it. That's exactly how they get away with it not being officially assault, because they don't officially force you to do anything, but yet they make you feel like you have to do it. They make you feel like you owe them something almost, where you don't. You absolutely don't and should not. That you feel pressured into doing this act for them because of how well they've treated you, because of how good they've been to you. But it's all a manipulation tactic. This came out exactly at the right time that I needed in university, because I was in university going through this, and it really opened my eyes into thinking, oh my God, so this isn't okay. It's not just me. It happens. It happens, and it's not okay. We then get the last part of the episode, which is the most powerful of them all. Oh my God. He has a daughter. And she comes, and Hannah stays and watches her play the flute, and watches him watch her play the flute while he's watching in awe and absolutely mesmerized by his daughter. But you see the wheels turning on Hannah's face, thinking, what is the future of this little girl going to look like being raised by a man like that? How will she know how to defend herself against a piece of shit like that when she's being raised by a piece of shit like that? And therefore raising a daughter who will unfortunately maybe endure a situation like this when she's older, maybe even worse, because she didn't have a father figure to set an example of what she should not put herself through, of what she should say no to, because he is that man. He is that predator. And then the last shot, Hannah leaves, and then there's a bunch of women that enter his building. There's a shot of a whole bunch of women just coming in, entering his building, which was to me an obvious representative of, unfortunately, all the women that have endured this kind of situation and that have to endure this and that should not endure this, unfortunately have experienced this. So very heavy stuff. Very, very heavy stuff. So yes, it's just absolutely an incredible piece of an episode that, again, like I've said, I've never seen something being discussed like this before, and in such an impactful way. We go through it right there next to Hannah, with Hannah, and I felt myself just right there in her shoes. Like, that's, yeah. What are you supposed to do? Yeah, like young me, especially when you're younger too. And again, like I said, I'm happy they mentioned the college girls, because it's especially when you're younger, you're naive. You're naive and easily get taken advantage of. You don't know the world. You don't know life yet. Yes, easily men like this prey on girls who are younger, like in college age, sometimes even teenagers, which is just a whole other level of disgusting, and take advantage of their naivety. And me, as a young college girl, that was exactly it. I experienced this type of situation on multiple occasions, and I always excused it. I was like, okay, well, it's not like they forced me into anything. And you just tell these things in your head, like, it's okay, they didn't put a gun to my head. They didn't push me against the wall, they didn't force me. But yet, it's something that you didn't want to do, but felt pressured into doing. And that should never happen. You should not feel the pressured into doing a sexual act that you don't want to do. It's absolutely in your right, and you should feel the power to stand up for yourself, even if they yell at you, even if they get mad at you. You should absolutely kick that piece of shit out if they don't respect you and your boundaries. I mean, I did go over the whole episode just now, but I would recommend you watching it if you haven't watched it. It really changed my life because after this, I did see things clearly and I told myself I would not let that happen again. I finally was able to stand up for myself and make sure that I would not put myself in that kind of situation ever again. And I wish that for everybody. I wish that for every single person, that you don't have to go through an experience like this and that you find the courage to stand up for yourself. Don't allow anybody to make you feel uncomfortable. I know that was a lot. I know it was very heavy. Again, I'm sorry. I usually do like having fun videos on this channel. It just really is something that I've been wanting to talk about for years, and I want other people to know about this episode and to know that this is an experience that happens to multiple people, multiple women, multiple people, and it's not okay. It's not okay, and no one should ever feel pressured into doing a act that they don't want to do. Please let me know your thoughts. If you feel comfortable enough to share your experience, if unfortunately you've experienced this, I really hope you haven't, but if you have and you would like to share, feel free to do so in the comments. And then if you're not comfortable with sharing, that's absolutely okay. I really wish the best for all of you, and that hopefully none of you have to experience something like this, and you all live happy, comfortable, consensual lives.